Dear colleagues, at the very beginning, let me greet you on behalf of the Institute of Lowland Forestry and Environment from Novi Sad. In the ongoing presentation, I will briefly present you one of the Refocus outputs titled Holistic Guideline for Resilient Riparian Forests, which is prepared within Work Package 6. The output has been prepared thanks to joint effort of all project partners and dealt with the complex issue of integral forest management and conservation in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve, including different interests and demands of various stakeholders in this region. Conservation and management of riparian forest ecosystems in the Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve are strongly influenced by national and European legislation as well as different strategies, initiatives, programs and so on. The mosaic of often overlapping policy documents creates confusion in interpretation and their implementation, leading to conflicts between various stakeholders, for example, forest sector, nature conservation or non-governmental organization and so on. All these stakeholders have different attitudes toward priority forest management objectives, for example, market orientation or nature conservation. Therefore, effective communication between various actors and stakeholders in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve is essential for integral resource management aimed to ensure forest stability and resilience of this region. The aim of the output was to establish the bridge between the Refocus project outputs and their potential users. The output has been prepared throughout several phases. In the first phase, for example, we summarized the existing national and EU legislations across the project partner countries which directly or indirectly affect forest management and conservation in this region. In the next phase, we analyze the position of Biosphere Reserve within the landscape of different sectoral and cross-sectoral legal and regulatory acts with national scope, and later identify relevant stakeholders and their main task and interests concerning forest management and conservation in this region. Also, one of our tasks was to identify and discuss the main issues in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve concerning forest management and conservation. Therefore, the strategy, this holistic strategy was prepared taking into account all respective policy frameworks and planning procedures, different stakeholder demands, the current state and predicted forest dynamic, as well as primary forest management purposes. Two stakeholder workshops were organized within Work Package 6 to identify the most important ecological and social issues in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve. These issues were identified in the dialogue between different stakeholders and researchers. Therefore, we might say that this output summarized scientific and expert knowledge on the most important problems in riparian forests of Biosphere Reserve. In this table, you might see the problem identified. They are distinguished as ecological and social, and the most important ecological issues across project partner countries were decline of underground water, presence of pests and diseases, natural regeneration problems, availability of forest reproductive material of native tree species, while the most important social problem was conflicting interest of stakeholders. To address the main issues which are identified during stakeholder workshops, within the project, researchers either produced a specific information pool or systematized already existing research results. Here in the table, you may see hot issues that we focused on within the guideline, and the guideline is designed to offer the answers how each of these problems might be potentially addressed. In this presentation, we focused more on a social issue, actually on the conflicting view of different stakeholders in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve. For analytic purpose, users of riparian forests were categorized as forest owners, forestry employees, companies and organizations, and citizens. And user interests were grouped into categories of wood production, nature conservation, water supply, CO2 storage. You may see it on the left. In the round field, you may see the intensity of user interest toward particular categories, which could be very strong, strong, and so on. And you may also see zone of conflicts and interest fields. Here you might see example from Serbia, example from a nature reserve Kovilsko-Petrovaradinski Rit. On the figure presented, you may see two interested fields. In the one, the interested field one is favored by forest companies and employees in forestry as well as wood processing industry, and it is related to the use of forest for the wood production in the most profitable way. Why the second interested field is favored by nature conservation and citizens, and it's related to use of forest for protection of nature, for recreation, landscape, and so on. Conflicts may emerge between different user groups, but also within one of the same group. For example, the province of Vojvodina, who transferred management rights to the public enterprise Vojvodina Šume, has a very strong interest in wood production for creating market revenues on the one hand, but also in nature conservation on the other, for providing public goods as required by legislation. Information on the interests and potential conflicts of interest is therefore useful to perceive positions of actors more clearly, and depending on that to make targeted selection of scientific arguments that can best support own activities in the particular riparian forest. The same approach was made for other partner countries as well. There was some small changes, as certain countries have identified additional relevant actors in Mura-Drava-Danube Biosphere Reserve. Likewise, in contrast to Serbia, where this issue was studied at the level of single special reserve, in the case of other countries, the problem was observed at the state level, involving a much larger number of stakeholders. Actors which want to integrate relevant scientific information into their solution in practice must first judge the relevance of the scientific information for their own solution, and then check the soundness of this information and examine factors that may help or hinder their implementation. For this purpose, we use the theory-based research integration utilization model, or shortly RIU model. And at the next slides, we have provided several steps how to apply scientific information into practice. For a final evaluation, you may use the criteria listed in the steps 1, 2, and 3 as a checklist. Before you start, look to the previously identified issues and use them to find more detailed information, for example, at the project website, and then provide answers to questions from each step again. For example, in the step 1, you have to make a realistic judgment about the relevance of the refocus research results for your activity in the riparian forests of your interest. Here you may see 3 sub-steps. The first one is, are particular results relevant for your practical problem or ongoing political process? The second one is, are particular results relevant for your potential allies? And the last one is, can you establish the link between results and the relevant public goals? In the step 2, which contain from 4 sub-steps, you have to make a realistic judgment about the scientific basis of refocus research results. In the holistic guideline, you may find detailed explanation of each step, which may help you to make the right choice. In the step 3, you are asked to make a realistic judgment about the implementation of your science-based solution in practice, and this step 3 is working in the same manner like steps 1 and 2. Finally, the more answers you can give yes, the better are chances for your science-based solution to become implemented in practice. More details about material presented you may find in the holistic guideline. Also, for more information, you may contact a research team that was working on preparation of the output. Thank you for your attention.